Welcome, everyone. I'm absolutely thrilled you're joining me for this explainer today because, well, we're about to open up a literal bureaucratic time capsule. We often think of the modern corporate world, with all its red tape, the endless memos, those overflowing inboxes, as this entirely recent invention. But today, we're diving into a piece of history that feels incredibly, almost uncomfortably, relevant to modern office life. We're going to see how human nature, especially when it comes to doing paperwork, hasn't changed one bit in over a century.
But before we get to our main artifact, I want you to ask yourself something honestly. Have you ever ignored an angry email from accounting? Come on. Maybe you dragged your feet submitting a receipt or kind of forgot to log those travel expenses until the absolute last minute. Look, if you're nodding your head right now, don't sweat it. You are in excellent company. Because as we're going to prove today, this workplace struggle is completely universal. People have been driving their accounting departments absolutely crazy for well over 100 years.
Section 1. The 1912 Corporate Memo.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're kicking things off with our primary historical artifact, and it perfectly captures the pure frustration of middle management in the early 20th century. This authentic 110-year-old letter features an incredibly formal heading. It's from the Honorable Mr. R. Byrne, Secretary to Government in the United Provinces, dated March 22, 1912, sent all the way from Allahabad. And Mr. Byrne isn't just writing to one specific guy here, oh no. He is addressing all heads of departments, commissioners of divisions, district officers, judges, and even the private secretary to His Honor, the Lieutenant Governor. This is basically the 1912 equivalent of a massive, company-wide urgent email blasted out to every single senior director in the whole organization.
And it gets better. At the very bottom of the document, he signs off with, "I have the honor to be, sir, your most obedient servant, R. Byrne, Secretary." It's wonderfully ironic, isn't it? It's this highly formal, incredibly polite Victorian-era sign-off, but as we unpack the actual meat of this memo, you'll see that Mr. Byrne is definitely not acting like an obedient servant here. Actually, scratch that. He's delivering a very firm administrative scolding to the entire government staff.
Section 2. The problem with laxity.
So what exactly caused this massive company-wide scolding? Well, it all comes down to a policy backfire that prompted this entire bureaucratic headache. Now, what's really interesting here is the precise wording Mr. Byrne uses. He writes that a previous rule change encouraged laxity in preferring claims. Here's the backstory. The year prior, the government tried to be the good guys. They extended the deadline for employees to submit their claims from 6 months to a full year. They thought, hey, let's give people some breathing room. But instead of being helpful, giving employees a full year just made everybody incredibly lazy with their paperwork. Human nature took over, and employees completely procrastinated. It's the ultimate irony of bureaucracy, right? Giving people more time somehow just creates total administrative paralysis.
Yeah, the government's attempt to be lenient completely blew up in their faces. The memo explicitly states that this extension caused inconvenience and extra work in audit offices. By giving everyone a 12-month runway to file their expenses, the government accidentally created this massive, totally unmanageable administrative pileup for their audit teams. Everyone just waited until the 11th hour, and the poor accountants were completely swamped, a real nightmare.
Section 3. Tightening the deadlines. So, what does management do when a lenient policy creates utter chaos? Well, they bring down the hammer. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how they crack down on all that procrastination. The generous old deadlines were completely rolled back. Claims against the government that could previously wait a whole year, cut in half. Bam, you now have just 6 months. And for claims regarding arrears of pay or allowances, that investigation window was slashed from a highly generous 2 years down to just 1 year. The era of taking your sweet time was officially over.
If we map out the timeline of this whole policy failure, it's pretty revealing. In 1911, the deadlines were relaxed. Fast forward to March 22, 1912, and the situation was so bad that this urgent reversal memo had to be drafted in Allahabad. But the document itself features a red ink stamp showing it was officially received by the Inspector General of Prisons in Lucknow on April 1, 1912. It took 10 whole days for this urgent, frustrated memo to physically travel from the secretary's desk to the prison department's inbox. It just perfectly captures the incredibly slow physical journey of snail mail bureaucracy.
Section 4. Inefficiency and fraud. In the second paragraph, Mr. Byrne shifts gears. He moves away from simply changing the deadlines to laying out the very real, high-stakes threats of these delayed expense reports. Because it wasn't just about annoyance anymore, it was about systemic risk. So the crucial point is that he outlines 4 specific reasons why late paperwork actually breaks the financial system. He says delayed payments are irregular and productive of inconvenience, sure,
But the last two are the heavy hitters. It impairs the efficiency of audit and, most alarmingly, it tends to facilitate frauds. I mean, think about it. When you wait a year or two to submit a claim, memories fade, receipts miraculously get lost, and it becomes significantly easier for unscrupulous folks to slip fake expenses right past the auditors. Late paperwork literally opens the door to theft.
And just to ensure everyone actually listens this time around, the memo ends with a classic corporate threat. The letter explicitly states that a note will be inserted into the Civil Account Code, warning that such delays, when not satisfactorily explained, will be brought to the notice of the head of the department concerned. That is the 1912 equivalent of CCing your boss on an angry email. If you don't explain exactly why your paperwork is late, you are getting reported directly to the person in charge of your career. It's a remarkably familiar tactic, isn't it?
Section 5. A timeless workplace lesson.
Let's take a step back and connect this century-old red tape directly to our modern office dynamics, because I really want to leave you with this provocative question. If a highly formal, rigidly structured 1912 government bureaucracy couldn't fix employee procrastination, what hope does your modern HR or accounting department have today? We've swapped ink and paper for software and automated alerts, but the underlying human behavior simply hasn't changed. We still put things off, we still frustrate our auditors, and management still has to send out memos telling us to get our act together. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this incredible document today. I hope this explainer has shown you that while the tools of the workplace evolve, the people in it, well, they stay exactly the same.